Hi guys. We were just about ready to get started with quick intros. So I'm going to call out people's names, and if you can just say a quick hi, hello. One interesting thing if you want to share about your watercolor journey, that's great. If not, that's okay. The first person I have on my list here is Jetty.
Hi, Jetty Archer from Rhode Island, and I'm looking forward to Clarice's classes. I love the loose painting.
Hi, Jetty. Thanks for coming. Okay. Next person I have is Karen.
Good morning. I'm in Victoria, British Columbia. It's 8 o'clock in the morning here. I haven't had any coffee. My dog is whining to go out. I am not woken up yet.
Oh no! Did you want to go get coffee really quickly?
Don't worry about me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love the dedication. But I feel your pain about that no coffee bit, because I'm like that. Oh. Well, welcome, Karen.
Okay. Thanks.
Next, I have Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I'm in New Jersey, right by the ocean. So I love watercolor. I'm kind of addicted to it. I spend at least maybe 6 hours a day painting.
Wow! Oh my gosh, Laura! And Laura,
lately I have been. I've been crazy.
I've been meaning to ask because did you win the Botanica set by
Yes.
White Knight?
Yes.
Do you like it? How do you?
I like it.
Okay.
I like it a lot. Yeah.
Okay. I've always been meaning to ask, but I've never really got around to doing it because I think it was such a pretty palette. Well, welcome,
Yes.
Laura. Okay.
Thank you.
Next, I have Jamie. Hi, Jamie. Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. Hi, guys. I'm Jamie. I'm from Vermont. I've been watercoloring about 6 or 7 months, but also addicted like Laura. Have been watercoloring many hours every day, and my background is in art, so that's not new. But watercolor is, and I love your style, Clarice.
Oh, thanks, Jamie. Jamie's got some beautiful friends in the background. Do you want to tell us who you have in the room today?
So that's Valena up on the center thing, and then we've got a dude.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Oh, dude. Some cats, some Siberian forest cats.
Yeah, that's what Jamie does on Instagram. That's how I came across Jamie. I was like, I think I called you by the cat's name, and then you said, no, sorry, that's my cat. I am Jamie. So it's cute. Yeah. Welcome, Jamie.
Thanks.
All right, next we have Nick. Nick?
Oh, I have to fix that. I keep forgetting that my son
Maria,
uses my...
right?
Yes, it's Maria.
Yes, I got it right.
You did. Good morning. I'm Maria. I'm 8 o'clock in the morning as well, but I did make my tea.
Oh, nice.
I'm in Southern California, but 8 o'clock is much better than the 6 o'clock class, which just about... So I've been painting for about 3 years. Wish I could spend 6 hours a day like Laura, but my kids would probably murder me in my sleep. So I do it when I can.
Well, welcome, Maria. I was going to say Nick again, even though I know it's not Nick. Okay, and last but not least, we have Libby.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Libby.
Sorry, How are you guys?
You got right on time, right when we were doing intros.
So, how are you guys?
Very good. We're just doing really quick intros. You can just say hi if you're still kind of getting yourself together. It's all good.
Well, I've only been doing watercolor since the fall, and I've been mostly following Clarice, and so I really appreciate all that she's been teaching me, and I think she's really great at it. So it is it's just 11 o'clock. I'm on the eastern coast over in Virginia Beach.
Nice. All you people from the beach, I'm so jealous. All right. Oh, okay. Thanks, Libby, and welcome.
Sure.
I'm just gonna add
Thank
Jill. Jill just came in, and we'll just wait for Jill to maybe say hi, hello before we get ready. Jill, are you here yet? Are you able? Oh, here you are. 1 second. Let me add you as a pin so you can say hi. Hey, Jill.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
You came right on time. We're just saying hi, hellos. And you're on the spot now.
Okay, that's better. I couldn't find my invite thing, and I was just like all over.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
What I would suggest is, ladies, if you guys end up signing up for any of the other classes coming up in the upcoming months, what I would suggest is, number one, you always have to get a download immediately, either in the email confirming your spot or as an immediate download. I think I have it as both just in case, because I've been getting a lot of random, when I say random, I mean like one-offs here and there where people say either they don't get an email with the PDF or they don't get the automatic download. So if you don't happen to get something as soon as you sign up, just email me right away so I can send it to you. And when you get that info, what I would suggest you do is just add it to your Google Calendar or whatever calendar with the Zoom info and whatnot. So this way, when the day arrives, you can just, it alerts. That's great. Okay, so getting into today's lesson, I'm just going to walk through the supplies really quickly. So I said we were going to be using 3 brushes. We're using the round number 8. I have a rigger number 2 and then a flat number 8. For my colors, I'm using my White Nights set of 36, and we're going to be trying the Quin Rose, English Red, Cerulean Blue, and then the Emerald. Those are the 4 colors we're using. And for paper, I am using my, where did I put it? Legion. However, for the practice and the swatching bits and whatnot, I'm just going to be using Canson. So that is the sheet right here. And what we're aiming to do is create something simplistic. So we're going to be focusing, I'm toning it down a little bit compared to the other 2 classes, just so it's not overwhelming. And we're just going to focus on the blending bit. So we're going to be doing a lot of like getting 2 tones in using like 1 brush, and then kind of learning how to kind of feather. That's a term I've coined. And by feathering, I mean like going from dark to sort of light. And yeah, so also make sure you've got water handy and that you've got your paper towel handy. So yeah, that's it. Oh, here's my Legion paper right here. So when we're composing, I'm going to switch to my Legion 100% cotton paper, and we're going to go with that. Okay. All right, so I'm putting that aside. I'm going to switch back to my Canson. And I've got a palette handy here just in case. What I'm also going to do, keeping another number 8 handy, just, I don't know, just in case I need to sort of use it for maybe just water mixing or something. So just giving you guys a heads up. Okay, so let's begin. I just had a quick message from someone, so give me 1 second. Anyone have Trishan on their Instagram? Anybody? I'm assuming nobody, right?
Trisha?
Trish Ann.
I don't think so.
No, right? Okay. Because she's just texted and saying she's having issues signing in. But right now we're in the middle of the class and I can't really forward her any info. You know what I will do is, Jill, can I just message her and ask her to get in touch with you? Do you mind?
Me?
Yes.
Sure. I have the meeting ID and the passcode right in front of me.
Okay. Sorry guys. I just want to make sure I am getting everybody. Okay. All right. Yeah, turning it back on. So Jill, I've sent a message to both of you. If you can please help her, that would be super amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. So we're going to start off by doing some swatching with our colors that we have. So as I mentioned, we are using Quin Rose. We're using Quin Rose. We're using Cerulean, English Red, and then Emerald. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just swatch the colors by themselves, and then we're going to go into doing a couple of mixes to see what sort of tones we get, and you know, what we like, what we don't like, that sort of thing. So let me put this here closer so you can see as I am closing the pop-up. Okay, so I really love my Quin Rose, so we're going to start off with some Quin Rose first. So I'm just going to mix some of that on here. Now, if you've taken any of the other classes, you've seen there's two different ways that I like to swatch. You can either, if you really enjoy seeing the flare of color, you can either go in first by adding some water to your sheet and then going in with the color, or you can just go right away and add that in. I'll leave that up to you. I'm just going to keep it simple for myself since I am instructing, and just go with adding the color directly onto the sheet. But feel free to have extra fun on your end. So we're doing the Quin Rose right here. And I'm using the flat brush to do this just so I can get some nice neat lines. So this mixture right here is about 70-30, where it's 70% water, 30% color. I'm just going to get some more color directly from my color cake and just add it to the beginning of the sheet here, just to see the intensity I can get using this color. Even add some lines in there to see how it sort of dries up after the fact. So we're also kind of experimenting with, you know, if you wanted to go and layer in some more, what that looks like. So that's with the Quin Rose. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go right into the Cerulean. I'm loving the two colors together because they're two bright colors, but one is cool, the other one is warm, and I like that pink and blue. Although this is more of a purpley pink, but they're super pretty together, and I've kind of challenged myself to go in and get some colors that I wouldn't typically pick out. Because if you see my videos, it's mostly all pinks and oranges and like all the warm colors really. So here's my Cerulean. I'm going to go ahead and put that right next to the Quin. And now the Cerulean, I find, is a lot lighter in comparison to this one right here. So even if I go directly into my color cake right now, I'm gonna, like, I don't find much of a, like, it's not as opaque. I think that's a better way of explaining it. So I think it'll give us a good contrast when we have like a nice bright floral, and then we've got one that's a little more muted in tone. I just want to make sure I have, okay, I'm just going to leave it this way just in case Trishan comes in, and I can allow her to get into the class. Okay, so here's Cerulean. Next, I am going to sample English Rose. Now my English Rose has a little bit of some other color in there, so let me just take my paper towel really quickly, a little bit of it, and then just clean it out so that you can see the true color as opposed to the green that was currently there. So getting some of my English Rose. And now this gives us a nice dark color, and I really like, again, nice contrast with some of that cerulean over there. Can anyone guess why I would pick a color like this when we have like two bright colors? Well, bright as in like lively colors like this, then we go for something a little more earthy like this. Anyone have any comment as to why I would do that?
Maybe so you can neutralize?
Yeah, yep, that's one. Okay, we're gonna hit it in the next spot. But again, sorry, I noticed that Libby just made a comment in chat. She doesn't see English Rose.
No.
What? Sorry, Libby. What do you mean? Like you don't have English Rose?
I have English Red, which looks very brown, but I don't have an English Rose.
Sorry, I was meaning English Red. It's not English Rose. The Quinn Rose got me confused, but yes, I meant English Red.
Thank you.
And yes, it is. It is more of a brown. Sorry, someone said something. I cut them off.
If you don't have English Red, what would be another color that you could use?
Okay, so here's my English Red on my spectrum. So we've got, so it's very much like a brownish red, and I think the next color to it would be like a burnt sienna.
Okay. Thank you.
Like you do see it, right? So we've got burnt sienna,
yes.
Or I think if you take the raw umber and mix a little bit of maybe Madder Lake Red, you might be able to get something like that.
Okay.
Okay, just, I mean, play around and see what you get. But also, as we're doing this, guys, just make sure you're also making notes of what colors we're using here, because the next step after below, we're going to be mixing these colors in to see what we're able to get. So just keep a pencil handy or something like that. And I should take my own advice and do the same. But yes, this is English Red, cerulean, Quinn Rose. And then our fourth and final color is emerald. Now, while I love emerald, I just feel like every time I can't use it by itself. It's just way too bright, unless I guess I'm using muted tones, like maybe a lighter version of English Red to create the florals and then use emerald for the leaves. That's just me though. I just feel like it's a beautiful color, but I like mixing it with something else to get a slightly different tone. Or if it's just strictly a all green kind of painting, then this makes for a nice pop because you don't have any other colors. So you could have some muted greens and then you have some emerald in there. Okay, so here's what emerald looks like on paper. Again, I'm doing my 30-70-ish mix. That's typically what my consistency for mixing when I paint generally. So I've laid down the color. Now I'm going directly into my color cake. And let's just see how dark we can get it. So I think this is more on the spectrum of the cerulean. While it is dark, the opacity isn't, it's still got a bit of opacity in terms of lower opacity. So it's still kind of see-through compared to English Red, where you can see it's just like covered the whole sheet. You can see some tonal range in here. and here, but these two are pretty solid. This, mind you, is not as solid because remember I did a couple of, I made it lighter first, then I went in and did a darker hue. But you can see when I went in darker in these, it's still giving me that, it's not a flat lay of color. I guess that's one way of saying it. Okay, so now we're gonna go on to mixing some colors. And I'm gonna mix the two colors that excite me the most first, instead of saving the best for last. And I am very excited to mix, let me just wash my brush off really properly first. Still got some emerald green on it. So I would like to mix these two colors right here, obviously. The Quin Rose and the Cerulean, I find, make a really pretty color. Make sure I don't have too much water on my brush because there's enough water on here. And it gives me this beautiful purpley color. So again, when we've got a painting like this, you can see the hues are all kind of in there. And especially when we kind of paint with just the Quin Rose and then get in some blue here and they kind of connect, then you get that nice beautiful purple emerging in there. So that's the whole idea when you're very carefully selecting your colors, especially for a painting like this where you're relying heavily on the blends to kind of, I guess, speak for the beauty of the loose art as opposed to the detail. Okay, so let me get some of that purple. And let's just swatch that over here. And yeah, I would call it purple mauve. I think mauvey kind of purple. And because of how I intend to use this for our session, I'm not going to go in and kind of get a darker color to see how dark it would be. This is going to be showing up mainly in our blends. I might end up using whatever leftover color we have and adding some tiny little florals on the outskirts of things. Maybe, we'll just see. I like to use leftover paint, but we'll see where the flow takes me. And you, because you don't have to be necessarily following what I'm doing, but you know, feel free to kind of mix and find your own vibe in terms of that. Okay, so now these two. So this is why I picked the English red. This was my main reason for picking the English red, because the emerald, as beautiful as it is, I felt it was a little bit too dark as the main green for our composition. And so mixing these two colors actually got me a green that I love, which is right here. Got a lot of hair in my hand. Right there. And I love the balance that it brings to everything, because it's a little bit more of a muted green in comparison to the bright colors that we have in there. So it really makes the florals pop. So let's just get right on to mixing it. So I'm going to mix some of that green in here and get some of this. Now, you might end up, depending on your proportions, your mixings, you might end up getting more of a browny color like that, in which case that just means that you've got more of the English red as opposed to the emerald. So I would put more of the emerald into your mixture like that. So if you fix your, you know, if it's too brown, add a little more emerald. If you feel like it's too green, add a little more of the English red. Just, you're being a color scientist in this area here, deciding how much you want added in your mixtures. So I got a mixture that I'm fairly happy with, and here I'm just going to swatch it really quickly. Now, my brush had too much water on it, which is why it's quite see-through, and that's okay. We're just literally just trying to see what colors we're able to get. I'm just going to also do one more swatch where I'm getting more of the brown to see more of the English red sort of range of color we get. And I'll do that on this side because the English red is right here. So we're getting more of a olivey, woodsy green, olivey green maybe. Again, I think it's nice when you have different tones by just getting two colors involved, and this way it brings everything in together, the end result of your painting in together quite nicely, because you're using similar hues, or hues from, you know, mixing the same colors. Now this is more green when I added more of the emerald green. Okay. All right, that's that. We're not going to do too much more. We're going to get right into practicing the blending and the strokes and whatnot. So before we move on to that, I want to open up the floor and ask if people have any comments or questions or anything that they've sort of come to realize during this process here. Anybody?
I have a comment.
Sure.
Is it, I don't know if it's just mine, but I have my Zoom on speaker view so I can see what Clarice is doing. And everyone that isn't muted, every time you make noise, it switches over to you and I can't see what she's doing. Is it possible to mute?
Yes, I was going to make that as a comment. Can everyone who doesn't have a question or not speaking, please put yourselves on mute. And I should be on pin. Maria, you can also pin, right click on my screen and just pin it. I guess when I thought, because I pinned...
I've been trying, I'm on my iPad. I don't think it's letting.
Sorry, Karen, can I ask you to go on mute? Because we just want to make sure that if it's just on my screen, and screens don't switch if there's a noise on your end.
I'm also on an iPad.
Oh, just go on mute. Just hit the mute button.
I just see a video button at the bottom. I don't see a mute option.
Are you on your computer or on
iPad?
What are you on?
I'm on my iPad.
I'll tell you where it is. You don't see a menu up on top?
Oh, let's see. I see something about switch the camera. Oh, there's the mute. Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay, so if no one has any comments or revelations or questions that they've had over what we've just done, we're going to move on to doing our next bit. I'm going to focus mainly on my sheet here for this. I also just want to make sure that it is still recording. Perfect. Okay. If you need to switch out your water, maybe now is also a good time, but can always wait till before we do our composition. That's up to you. Okay, so for this style specifically, I really like using, if you've done the homework, if you've done the videos that I've asked you guys to sort of focus on before we start the class, you will notice that the, did I use the filbert for the first one? Probably not. The blue florals I didn't, but you can, I'm going to throw this out there. You can either choose to use your round number 8, or feel free to join me and use the flat number 8 for what we're going to do next. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do both. So this way you can kind of see what kind of results I get when I use each of the brushes, I guess. So first things first, I'm going to use my favorite Quin Rose to practice what I'm going to be showing you now. So These flowers are what I would call typically your flat brush flowers. And I've done them quite a few times, I think, in several videos. And I even have a video specifically for it. Just take off that excess water there. So I'm getting some color using my flat brush. I'm going to mix some more color actually. And then I'm actually going to keep the number 8 handy. And then just using my flat brush, we're going to do the flower. So here's my main flower. I'll start from the center here. And now this is not our composition, we're just practicing. So just keep in mind the techniques and what I am doing. Techniques in the sense like the step by step, what am I doing first? What am I doing next? So I'm just gonna go ahead and add these brush strokes, like pressing down, going all the way down. So this is like one petal. And then I'm quickly going to alternate by going in with the number 8 and just water on it. And I'm just adding another petal off to the side, and I'm touching this a little bit to get that nice bleed of color in. And then I'm switching again to create the next petal, and I'm pushing all the color down to the center. And you can see what's happening here is that even though I don't have the center over here was created with just water, the color is seeping in between. However, at the top it's not. So this is where you kind of go ahead and cheat a little bit and add a little bit of color in there. So it bleeds in while it is still damp. And now all of a sudden you can see 3 petals. We're going to move on and do the same thing on this end here. And again, if you notice how I'm holding my brush, I'm not using it at 90 degrees. I'm going sideways to kind of really avail of the fullness of the brush and the full length of the brush. And this way it gives me, I'm doing my petal in lesser strokes, and I'm getting a broader layer of water in this case, because there's only water on here. And then again, we're going back and we're going to add one more stroke here with the flat brush. And I'm pushing all the color down to the center. And then just really quickly at the top, I'm just going to add a couple of dots of color, and this way we've got a blend. Okay, so now I've done this. The next thing I want to do is immediately get some blue. I've not even washed my brush, and you can if you want to just get the pure unadulterated cerulean. I've just gone ahead, mixed it, I got some more purple on here. And I'm going to go ahead and create something similar on this end here, where it is damp. So if you just want to make these alternating petals and just use it, paint them like they're just aerial view, so just flat and straight up, that's fine. For the sake of practice, I think it's fine to just sort of focus in on the technique, on the blending, and the space that you're kind of incorporating in there. So you can see now with this, I'm really taking advantage of the fact that this petal is still damp, and so we've got some color. However, we know watercolor dries up to be very, very light. So this is going to be extremely light when it dries up. So what I'm going to do is just take a little bit more of that blue or the purple, whichever floats your boat, and I'm just going to add that to the center. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more of that color just on the edges here, just like we did around in these other flowers. Just like that, simple and easy. Now the next thing I want to do, again, we're still kind of practicing and getting the feel of learning how to alternate between a brush with color, a brush with no color, and then using that no color petal to our advantage and just kind of highlighting certain areas to kind of make it look like a lighter petal or just a petal with another tonal range in your flower. We're going to move into creating some leaves or some greens that are in here. And get used to this. So we're going to get, now that we've got some flowers, I'm going to get a little bit of this. This is about 80%. So 80% water, 20% color. So it's very watered down. And I've got some nice damp areas all over here. So I just want to use this again to my advantage, just like we did with the first flower, and we kind of created that second flower out of it, and it's almost like they share one petal. We're going to go ahead and create some vines or stems, whatever you want to call it really. And I'm using this light green that I have on my brush, and I'm lightly going to create these stems first, and I'm touching these petals down this way as well. You can see how the pink is blending in with the green, and that's a nice effect, especially for the loose style of watercolor. And then immediately what we're doing is dipping the tip of my brush in water because I want this to be a lot lighter. I'm going to create other stems that are kind of extending out from the stem we did. And we're just using the water we're creating almost like rivers. We're creating rivers of water. That's what we're doing in a very light tone of like color mixed with the water, but it's mainly water, right? And feel free to you don't need to finesse your leaves as much. We're just really practicing to get this technique down here. So now that we have these, I'm just going to focus on this one here. You can go ahead, you can use the same brush or use another brush. I'll leave that up to you. Get some more of the green, a darker version of that green, and just go in and highlight and just add a couple of strokes into the water rivers, quote unquote, that you've just created. And then you immediately have this blend of colors happening. And you can even go darker. So like towards the tips of the green, add in, tips of the leaves, and also extending down where it emerges from the flowers. You want to go darker there. So this way you've got some nice dark to lights. And just add the color in there. So exactly like what we did with the flowers, how we kind of went in with a dark color first, then went with no color, and then added some highlights of that color in the new, I guess, the watered down area. That's exactly what we're doing here. We're allowing watercolor to do its thing, and we're laying down the areas, the mappings. That's what I'm going to call my leaves and my stems, the mappings of where the color needs to flow. And then we're going in and adding a little bit of color in there, and then maybe adding in some more. And we want to get those nice different sort of tones happening. And so that's where we're highlighting or darkening the areas where they connect, because typically those would be the darker areas. You want them to stand out more. So that's the idea. To practice this some more, again, I would say do exactly what I did with when we first did these leaves. So now most of the flowers are dried up, and that's okay. So I'm going to create my so-called rivers of water. Just doing another stem here. And just go, like, be loose when you're creating these stems. Like, make sure you've got, the lines don't have to be connecting fully. Just create your have fun with this in terms of creating your leaves, and just go crazy, because what we want to experiment here with and practice is not so much the technique of how you're painting your leaves. It's more about getting that blending in and making sure that you're able to get that nice effect that looks like the colors are just flowing from, starting from the flowers and just kind of going outward. So I'm going in with my darker hue, and I'm just adding in some color here, just from the bottom of the leaves, then maybe touching a little bit at the tips of the leaves as well, so that they dry up darker. So you're, again, alternating between dark and light, or you're maybe, I guess another way of saying it would be you're mapping out where you're putting stuff using just light color or just water, and then you're going in with a darker hue and adding it to those rivers of water you've just planted or painted, and the watercolor does its thing. So now from there, I'm just going, I literally don't have a plan. I'm just kind of just drawing or painting things in and just going with the flow at this point for the leaves. Does anyone have any questions so far? How's the mixing in terms of when you lay the color on your sheet? Are you finding things are pooling too much? Are you getting good blends? Now is the time to sort of just bring those questions forth so I can gauge exactly where you guys are at, if you are struggling anywhere.
My blends are really just happening at the base and at the tip when I add the darker green.
So, can I see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 1 second. Let me just pin your video.
Okay.
Replace pin. Oh, that's pretty. Okay. It looks pretty on screen. I'm also not seeing it super clear. Can you just hold it a little bit behind? Like take it back a little bit? Okay, perfect.
Okay,
yes, perfect. And so, okay, so I like what's happening. That's exactly what's supposed to be happening. Now, what is it that is not to your liking?
I think it looks a little bit, I feel like I'm using, I think, enough water, but I feel like when I add the darker to the tip, it just kind of sits there. It doesn't really.
Right, and this is why that's happening. Let me just unpin you and pin myself again.
Okay.
Where am I? There we go. Okay, so why that is happening is because when you are laying down, I'm just going to get a little bit of light green on my brush. When you're actually laying down the leaves, what is happening is, so say we start the stem this way. I need a darker color so you can see better. And then we do a leaf. So I'm starting the leaf from here and I'm ending at the edge here. What's happening is most of the water, which is held on the brush, gets kind of stuck in the middle and at the beginning over here. At the edge, you don't have that much water. So you don't have the luxury of waiting a couple of seconds even, because this is dried up already. And the way to sort of determine, is this a good place to kind of add color to have that nice bloom or gradient effect, is just hold it up against the light and you can see if it is still damp or not. Now, if I go in here and add a little bit of a darker green, that's not going to work because it's dried up already. So it just looks like a line. But if I add some green over here, I can see that there's water, it's still damp. So it's giving me that blend. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does. Thank you.
But there's another fix to that. So if you do those and you're saying, okay, that looks really weird, remember, you can always go back in and just kind of highlight these areas. So you're just kind of giving this leaf almost like a little bit of loose detail without really adding too much to it. And that looks fine too. Like there's nothing wrong with that. This was just the basics of making sure you got your base, your beautiful blended base before you go in and add elements like this. So this would be the next step. And again, that is if you want to add certain highlights, and this would be more of a wet on dry technique at this point. So that's how you cover it up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I have a question. This is Libby.
Hi, Libby.
Hi. So what I'm finding is my stems start out okay, but for some reason I seem to overlap them too much and then they become too thick.
So can I see what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah. Can you see it? Am I upside down? I'm upside down. Yeah. No, I don't know.
Right, no, I can see it.
I know
So you're talking about the stems where the leaves are attached, because it doesn't seem like you got a lot of stem action happening. You got a lot of leaves.
Right here especially.
Right. So if you notice, when I do my stems, I'm using just I'm holding my brush like this, and I'm just using the tip of my brush to kind of just loosely add a wave almost. So I'm not sitting there and trying to really press down and draw the stem in. Then that would give me a thicker lay of color, because I'm really pressing down on the first quarter, not even quarter, yeah, first quarter of the brush. The trick to getting
the
thin...
I started out that way because like here, see these over here?
Yeah.
Those are fine. But then when I start adding in the leaves, like up here is not so bad. But then I started adding leaves in down here, and it just kept getting thicker and thicker.
Right. Okay. So here's what I would do if you, okay. Let me just show you how I do it. And this way I know I'm maintaining the thinness or the fineness of the stems. So I'll do my stem. And again, I'm just using the tip of my brush. I'm not really pressing down on the brush. If I were to press down on the brush, this is what I would get. That's too thick. This is thin. So I'm just doing my mini stems to the main stem. Again, using just the tip of my brush. And then for my leaves, depends on how you like to paint your leaves. If you like to go from inside out, you just use the tip for where you left your stem and then drag outward. Or if you like to go from outside in, you just make sure you're fairly close to where the stem ends. So you start from the out, press down, and you kind of drag towards the stem, and that's it. Does that make sense? How do you do it?
It does. It does. I think I was using the tip of the brush and making the outside of the leaf instead of taking the tip and then pushing the brush down to make the oval shape. I was taking the tip of the brush and making the oval on the outside and then pulling the color through it.
Ah, right. Yeah. Yeah. So don't get into the habit of doing that if it's not giving you the results you like. I would say try this, and if you like how this shows up for you, then just while we're doing this, like this is practice time, just go ahead and just practice.
Okay. Yeah, I do like your results much better. Is there any way I can fix where I messed it up there where it's really thin? Just do wait for it to dry and do like a dark color or something?
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly what I would do. So I would wait for it to dry, and then I would just go in with a darker color. And feel free, like if you feel like your brush control isn't quite there yet in terms of getting thin or small using a number 8, because number 8 is not exactly a number 6 or a 4. Then go for a smaller size brush, and then with a darker hue of the green, just go in and paint the same sort of leaves. And then this way, use the technique what we just discussed and you should get that nice overlay. So then it just looks like background foliage.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, so we'll move on to, let me unpin Libby. So we're going to move on to focusing, finishing some of the detail with the flower centers. Because the first point about doing the flowers and the leaves was to show you guys how you can get these blending effects by just, strategically laying down color in certain areas. So let's do another flower again. This time I want to really focus in on the technique of the flower. And I'm going to use my number 8 for it. So I'm getting some color for the Quin Rose directly from my color cake, and then I'm keeping my flat brush handy to do the blending bit. And so we'll do a flower over on this end here, because I guess that is the only, well, let's do it here. So exactly like how I did the petals here, because I used the number 8, I'm holding my brush at a slant, and I'm pressing down to get that nice lay of color. Then I'm going to dip just the tip of my brush in some water, and I'm going to create another lay down this way. And now another thing we can do is right away, because we've got this nice color, you don't want to switch brushes, whatever, just do it on the other side. And then you can just take your flat brush, maybe get a little bit of color on it, and just add what kind of looks like a petal in between. And then do it on this side too. And because it's supposed to be 5 petals, remember this is a very loose style of painting. They all don't have to be proportionate and equal. It could just be that one is kind of sideways or whatever. Just kind of leave it up to the interpretation of whoever's viewing the art. Now I'm going back in with my number 8, and I want to highlight the center areas, or maybe even on the outskirts here before this dries up. So I'm just adding a little bit of detail. So when it dries up, it kind of dries up with it blending into the petal. And then before we call it quits on this, I'm going to add a darker tone to the center using the tip of my brush. I'm just adding very jaggedy kind of linear lines, not linear, but yeah, well, they're just straight lines all the way around, and allowing the color to sort of bleed into these areas where it is damp. Now you can see that the color kind of goes up into this petal here and then just abruptly stops here and does this cauliflower kind of thing. Now the reason that is happening is because there's a lot of water here in this area of mine as opposed to the rest of it. Like the whole thing is damp, but because there's additional water here, not so much, it kind of just hangs around this area. It's not spreading out. I'll get more of a spread out over here on this side if I do it, because most of my water is pooled at the very bottom here. But either case, you can't fixate on elements like this unless you're going for a specific look. But if you're just doing this and you're just trying to get the hang of it and you just want watercolor to do its thing while you're painting because it's more of a therapy session for you and you love seeing the results that you maybe were not trying for, which is typically how I like to paint, then don't fixate on things like this. But I am explaining these tiny details to you so that you know why in some areas it might be blending, in some areas it might just be stopping short, or it just looks dried up, just like how Trishan kind of had a question about the leaves. So pay attention to these details when you're painting. to keep in mind what results you're getting. And yeah, the more you do it, the more accustomed you will get to recognizing these things in your art, and it'll get easier. Okay, so that's the center for this. And then what I went and did was I went ahead and added a darker tone in there, and I believe I got that by adding, oh, I think I just used a sepia. But if you feel like you want to just use a mixture of what we have here, and I think the best way, you could get a nice dark color if you mix the Quin Rose and the emerald. So let me just do that really quickly. Let's just see together. I'm gonna get some of that Quin Rose and a lot of that emerald. Yep, and we get this nice dark purpley color, and I think this would be perfect for the centers. So let me just swatch that over here. Like, that's a nice dark color. Okay, so here's me doing the centers using the color we just created. So I'm just gonna take the tip of my brush and kind of just jaggedy lines, but kind of matchstick kind of lines all around, leaving white space in between, uneven lines. And then just kind of dabbing the color onto some of these areas at the top and the bottom of this. Here I'm being a little more loose, and instead of just doing that nice pattern of lines, I'm just kind of being very loose with how I'm adding my lines, and then just tiny little dots all around. So try holding your brush where your wrist is resting on your table, and then your hand is kind of like this. And so this way you're just kind of dabbing with your wrist on the table, if that makes any sense, like this. Let's hold it this way. I'm at an angle, weird angle, but you guys can see what I'm doing, right? Like a hen pecking, right? Is a good way of describing it, I guess. Now, this is not fully dried up, but I'm going to go ahead and do what I did up there, down here as well. And I'm just going to see what sort of results I get with it blending into the areas where it's not dried up. And that's that. Now, if you really like the flat brush flowers, or I mean, whatever your preference is, I kind of really like the flat brush flowers because they kind of give me the best of, I mean, it's quick to do and easy to execute once you have the hang of it. So I'm going to go ahead and continue using this and just do a couple more of these flowers with the leftover paint that we have. We are at 12 right now, and I just need to add the next stick on here. But in the meantime, while I'm doing this to the camera, does anyone have any questions? So far with what we've done? Do you want me to go over something more right now, or like for another time, do you want me to show you maybe something that you didn't get, or maybe I didn't explain properly? I am happy to do that again.
Clarice, I think you need to change your battery.
Yeah, I'm just changing the where did it go?
I have a question, sort of.
Yeah.
Do you always wait for the centers to dry before doing those little lines for the stamens?
No. See,
Okay.
right, the third flower that I didn't wait for the centers to dry. I just kind of went ahead and did it right away.
Yeah. Okay.
And I did say that I wanted to see what was going to happen. So you can see it's kind of given me that cloudy effect here. I will say this, I'm not a huge fan of how this one turned out. It's too much detail. But again, that's just my preference. I prefer something more like this for the style that we're going for, where it's just erratic. It's just erratic, sporadic, and not uniform. And we tend to kind of be more uniform when we're doing something, and we fixate on things like, oh, the space needs to be just right, or I don't know, maybe it's not for everybody, but I tend to do things like that. So trying to be intentionally like the left flower is more of a added chore, I guess. I have to be intentional about it. Yeah. But yes. Yeah. So this is how it blended in. And yeah, I would encourage you to try it because, you know, both these effects look quite good together. And we have some of that happening in the really rough sketch bit that I did over here too. So
great.
Okay, so I'm going to do a couple more. We're still practicing, we're good, no more questions outside of what we've had so far?
Can I see you how when you're doing the excuse me, when you're doing your petals with the flat brush?
Yes.
Your edges look, you can't tell you're using a flat brush. On mine, I can tell if I'm using a flat or an oval, and it just doesn't look right. Can I see how you're holding your flat while you're...
Yes, so this is going to take a little bit of practice, and here's why. Because I'm going to take some of the cerulean this time. Because what you'll notice is when you do your first petal, it's quite flat. And there's nothing wrong with it just being flat, but a petal normally has like a little bit of curvature on the sides. So I just kind of use the side of the brush and add a little bit of curve to it. And then as I move on to do the next ones, I'm using just the side of my brush like this. And I'm kind of adding these strokes in. But again, I mean, obviously if I just added one stroke like that, it doesn't look bad. It looks like a loose petal. You could get away with it. But I kind of like to have it slightly thicker than, or half of the thickness in comparison to the first petal.
Okay, that makes a huge difference. I see.
Right?
I was using my brush flat on all three of them, so it was
no, you get used to like, you know, using all
edges of the brush.
Yes, all edges of the brush, you know, because at some point you should also be able to just use the brush and create your leaves. Like do the whole thing with a flat brush, and you can.
Okay.
If you're
my little practice when I just did following along turned out really good.
Yeah, oh good. I'm glad. So just like use what you just did and do a whole bunch of them, and this way you're able to get that practice in, and pretty soon it'll be like second nature, if not, you know.
Okay. I love the way that the Quin Rose and the cerulean kind of the pigments separate a little bit, so you're getting that really pretty mixture of the two colors together.
Yeah.
It looks kind of like magical almost.
Yeah, it's like cotton candy floss.
Yeah. Candy cotton and unicorns. I don't know.
I know, yeah. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to do a couple more of these flowers, and as I'm painting them, I'm going to use a flux of these two colors that we have going, and I want to be able to have you guys get accustomed to, you know, when you start your flowers or your florals, maybe you want to use 2 brushes, maybe you want to use 1. I'll leave that up to you. I like 2 brushes. And just create your whole array of flowers first, and then kind of go in and do your greens after. So you're creating a whole bunch of flowers as opposed to doing a flower, then green, another flower, and green. I mean, you could do a bunch of flowers at the top, some at the bottom, and then, you know, do your greens right after each bunch. Again, your technique is your technique, and that's very specific to you and what you're comfortable with. So I won't dictate on that, but this is my suggestion in terms of getting a blend on this level, where you have the first flower blending in with the second, and then the second with the third, and then some more blending happening at the bottom. This is how you achieve it when everything is still damp, so you're doing it all together in one go. So if that's the effect you like, then try it out. Try it out. So that's what I'll be doing right now, and feel free to chime in if you guys have any questions or comments, or, you know, you're painting along and something comes to mind. So with this flower that I just did, I'm literally using, I used the flat of the brush to create the first petal, and then used the side to create these two, and then I literally just used the bottom to kind of swerve and create these little arc type strokes. And when you do an arc with the flat brush, this is sort of what you get. So these can be your flowers that are kind of not straight as an aerial view, but more of on a slant or at an angle. And then one more thing, if you like the insides of your flowers with that nice jaggedy edge, you can get that by just going in with another brush and getting a little bit of that color and just adding those little extensions in there. And so you have more of a jaggedy edge. It's super tiny here on mine because the flower is smaller, but this way the flat brush kind of ends off on a very flat note, so to speak. So if you like the jaggedy look, just go in with another brush and kind of help it along to achieve that. So I also mentioned about feathering. So while you guys are practicing and painting, here's how I came across feathering, by pretty much making use of the leftover paint that was on my palette. I would take whatever was left over and I would create these flowers or leaves on the outskirts of this, so then it looked like you went from dark for your main elements and then it kind of feathers off into a lighter version, more like background florals or petals. So I'm just taking a more muted, so if you don't have leftover paint and you just want to do the feathering, you're just getting a lot more water in your mixture as opposed to paint, and you're just adding background elements that don't look like full florals, but they're nice little bursts of color in the background. And again, at this point too, as you are doing your little feathering, you might want to add, so for instance, I've got some of this mixture of the cerulean and the quin rose, and I'm just going to take a little bit of I'm going to take the side of the brush and get some of the cerulean onto it, and I'm just going to go ahead and start painting it in, just using, again, the side of my brush to get these kind of very loosey looking elements. And you can see the two-tone that I have happening here. There's almost like little lines of blue in the purple. And that's all I did, was just get my main color on my brush and then just using the side of it to get a little bit off the color cake, and then going right ahead and painting my flower. And here's where I am using my rigger. And for the rigger too, if you're not accustomed to it, I mean, you don't have to be using it today if you don't have it, but I ideally like to rest my wrist on my table and then kind of hold around the edge over here, the edge of the metal part of the brush, and then just paint loosely. And again, I'm not fixating on, oh, that leaf doesn't look like it's a full leaf, it looks like a half leaf, because a lot of the loose style of art is just very loosely painting something so it doesn't fully look like a leaf or a flower or whatever, but the colors and the movement in your strokes kind of indicate and tell the viewer what it is. Yeah, and again, this is not something that you get right away, because you'll find yourself looking at what I'm doing and then you will want to either mimic it, and you might get fixated on trying to mimic that, thinking there's no other way you can do it. But the more you do it, the more you get into your style, I would say. So don't try and copy mine exactly, because even I can copy my own. But once you get the hang of letting loose and not fixating on these certain tiny elements, you get it. And that also comes with practice. So make sure you're also trying this as best as you can. So my whole idea of doing the practice session as flowers and leaves is so that we go right away into doing what we're doing and getting accustomed to the techniques of executing something in that style. So I'm getting the rigger and I'm going to add some green to the center of this flower here, because why not? Doesn't have to be all dark. I can add some green, and I kind of like the green because it kind of softens it a little bit, and I might use this for my main, I don't know. And Libby, you might want to use the rigger for your stems. You might find it easier.
I think the big thing I was doing wrong was not using the tip and then laying the brush down to create the leaves.
Right.
I was outlining, but you're right. The rigger is really nice to drag along to make a nice thin stem.
Yeah, right? And then even if it disconnects, it still looks quite nice. So how's the practice coming along, guys? Anyone have any more questions? Anything you want me to kind of go over? Because Actually, if you use the rigger or any of your other brushes that are thin like the rigger and you want to do the river effect, let's call it the river effect that I was talking about, where you kind of lay in your green, your light green first, mapping out where your leaves and stems are going to be, and then go in with the darker color. You can do that now. And tell me how that works out for you. Like, are you liking that effect? Is it... So I'm going to get some of that color on here. Try it out.
I had a lot more success doing it that way.
In which way? In the adding the water
With the
first?
rigger than doing the leaves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, do the rigger than the leaves.
So I've got darker color here, but I'm not going to be, I'm going to be overlapping, adding nice lay of color, making sure that the rivers are truly nice and damp, so that when I go in with my darker hue right after, I'll get a nicer blend in these areas.
What's the difference between a rigger and a script?
You know, to be very honest, I was wondering that myself, and I've not had a chance to work overly, like, experiment as much with the script. But I will say this, that with the script, I actually did some brush lettering, and it was quite nice in comparison to when I tried it with the rigger. So while they look the same, I think there's something different, because actually I have a script right here. Let's just look at it quickly. They look similar, but they're not. The script is bushier, so it's thicker, and the rigger is like very thin, and I guess that's probably why you're not able to get your nice thicks and thins when you do your script with the rigger. I don't know, anyone else have more experience with this? That's my take on it, at least.
Yeah, because I just realized, like, I've got a whole lot of scripts here and no riggers.
Well,
there's definitely a difference in them.
Right. And the script might work as well for something like this. I've not tried it. I've tried it for brush lettering and it worked great.
Yeah, it's a big difference in between brands and too, my Rosemary Co-Wax scripts are way thicker than my silver black sage velvets and my, I don't know, other ones.
Right. And
okay.
what's your preference in terms of out of all the varieties that you have?
Out of the varieties I have, my silver black velvet script is probably my finest. I get like tiny, tiny lines with it.
Ah, okay.
But I don't like it for lettering.
Right. Just for, like, I guess, thinner...
Just for doing, like, little tentacles and curlicues and things like that. Yeah.
So you don't have a finer detail brush that you use for that. You prefer using the, like, a scripty kind of brush for it?
For anything that I want the long, thin, curly lines for without any breaks, then I like my really thin script.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's the long lines, then yeah, these are easier to use as opposed to a smaller brush.
Yes. Okay, well, I'll have to get a rigger and try it out and see what the difference is.
I'm actually going to Google that right after the class to see if anyone has done a comparison to see what the difference is.
Yeah.
So I just did another river of leaves. I'm going to call this river of leaves. It's going to sound so funny. But, and I went in with a nice dark green, and I really like how it kind of does that nice, gives it like a shadow effect, just because I went over in certain areas. And it kind of almost pops out more than some of the other ones that we did previously. Okay. How are we doing so far? Do you think you guys are ready to do a composition? Like a mini composition based on what we've learned. It doesn't have to be crazy complicated. It could just be 3 flowers with some leaves all around. How do you guys feel?
Yeah, I think I'm ready.
Okay, well, whenever you guys are ready, you can begin. And even as you're going along and, you know, something happens and you have a question, please feel free to just unmute yourselves and just ask away. So I'm going to start in a minute or so if no one has any more questions about what we've done so far.
What's a tip for when you're first laying down your very first flower? Do you want to put it in like the center of your page, or do you want to do it like with photography where you're looking at thirds, or?
So I don't like to do the center because then I'm not a fan of symmetry for some reason. Maybe that's the designer. But I really like the idea of having something off to the side or slightly above the page, and then this way your eye flows on the sheet. Okay. Especially for this one here, because I kind of went with that whole creeper kind of idea almost. So it really depends on your composition. I guess if you have a bouquet, then you want to go more centered, but if you're doing something a little more with a flow, then you might want to go diagonal even, or just kind of hugging the curve. Like, go with your creative flow and you decide how, you know, what you feel like you want to try.
Okay. And what about like when you're doing a first flower? Do you want, typically your first flower, is that kind of your center flower? Like you're going to want that kind of like big and central, like flat?
That's how that's how I typically start. I start with my main florals first, and then I do the other, I guess, secondary florals. So my primaries are the first ones I do, and then my secondary. But in this case, all the flowers are pretty much the same. So it's typically you deciphering your first florals will be your darkest, and then you go lighter, and then, you know, I would build up in that manner at least. Okay, all right. So I'm just going to make sure that the battery doesn't need to be changed so that this goes uninterrupted. So I'll actually change the battery right now. Okay, so I'm going to start mine, and before I begin, anyone have any questions or comments? Anything you want me to go over? So even as I'm painting, I could probably explain. We're good? Okay. So we went over blending, we went over the feathering and the rivers. So I think we covered everything to kind of create something like this or close to it. So you can watch me paint as we go along now. Did you guys find the videos, the prep videos helpful at all in this, for this class?
I did. I did.
Yeah? Okay.
But I need all the help I can get.
Did you feel like it
Me
was
too.
like similar to what we're doing? So it was, you had a little bit of practice to be able to like get into things?
It's helpful just to have a practice of your style because it's not something I do every day.
Right. Fair enough.
No offense intended, but could you please turn your video off so we could see Clarice's?
Oh, whose? Are you not seeing my table?
I am now.
Oh, okay.
One of my counterparts had the video still on.
Oh, okay. Got it. So what I've done here is I've actually mixed in a little bit of white into my pink just to sort of see what I get. And I kind of really love that purple that we got from mixing the Quin Rose and the Emerald, and so I'm actually using some of that in some areas as well, just to sort of make it look like a shadowy version of the flowers. Okay, super silent. No one has any questions, really? Or I guess you guys are all in the zone.
We're concentrating.
Okay. That is good then.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just concentrating. Mine's also coming out really pretty with this technique. So
oh, good. Yay.
I'm excited.
Oops, we can't see Clarice again. It seems to be getting on whoever talks last.
Oh, okay. Here, I've said something. It's funny because on my screen, it's, I've pinned it though. So, you know what? I'm probably going to have to send out a video showing you guys how to pin it on your end. Because technically, since I'm the host, if I pin it, I thought you all should see what I'm pinning for you to see. But clearly, that's not the case.
Yeah, if you can figure out how to pin on an iPad, that would be excellent.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a video. I'll definitely look it up, send it to you guys.
I have a question.
Yep.
So my flowers are dry, and I'm doing the centers.
Okay.
And because they're dry, they're not really bleeding up into the petals. Do you have a suggestion? Should I wet the petals before I start putting the center in?
Well, I'm doing my centers in right now, and they're not bleeding. I want that effect. Do you want it to bleed?
Only just a little bit, so that it gives. Because mine, they seem kind of flat to me.
So then, what I would do is try it. Try dampening just a little bit of the center, and then going in.
Okay.
Just do it for one and see if you're getting the effect you want. Because technically, if you wanted a little bit of a bleed, you would have to do the centers right before they dry up. And let me turn on the light because it looks to be quite dark in here. Where is the... It's at the bottom. Okay.
Well, I do have to say thank you for picking an easier composition this month than last month.
Oh, did you find last month easier?
Oh no, last month was extremely difficult for me, but I'm feeling a little more successful this month.
Okay. Well, I realized after that there were a lot of elements, and I probably shouldn't have incorporated so many different elements in there. So it took a lot longer. It was a 2.5-hour class. But I have to say I was quite amazed by the results from last month. Like, a lot of people delivered and actually kind of stuck through and did it multiple times, so I was quite impressed. We had a 10-year-old join us last month too. Anyone incorporated the English red as is?
I have entirely forgotten about it.
Same with me. It's a little of a scary looking color all by itself for a flower.
Right.
Clarice, say something again so it goes back to you.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Yeah, just tell me whenever this happens so then I can always just chime in and revert back. I'm gonna go start the greens now. And mix some of the English red. Okay, I've got a nice dark green happening here. Probably need a little bit more of that English red. Got a couple of different variations. And I will do my rivers with my rigger. Now also keep in mind to add a little bit of green in between your flowers, and this way it kind of makes it look fuller, and you get that impression that there's green happening in the background. You can also kind of have some darker leaves overlapping on some of the flowers, and this way again you get that idea of leaves in between the flowers, peeking from in between the flowers. I would go less, like I'd probably spread them out throughout the sheet and then decide if you need to do more, because sometimes it can get away from you and you just kind of do a bit too much. So do less first, and then you can always add more if you need to. Make sure as you're doing your leaves or even your flowers and you're creating more, just dip your brush in water, and this way you're getting different variations of the same color, tonal ranges of the same color, that is. And with the green in between the flowers, because a lot of these flowers are created by just adding strokes, like some of them that are not, like you can see clearly they're a full flower. So in between, like over here on the edges, you can see that they're just a bunch of different little strokes. You can't quite tell which direction the flower is. Maybe you can. Just go in and add a little bit of green here and there, and this separates that flower from the next one. So maybe that's a good way to decipher where you want to have your greens, because we're not covering every little white space here, but we want to be intentional. I didn't focus too much on painting the leaves because I figured I have so many videos and most of you have done some of the other classes as well. How are you guys doing with leaves?
Leaves are the bane of my existence, but I'm working on it.
You should try the rigger. I think maybe you might enjoy doing leaves with the rigger.
I agree. I don't see any way for me to enjoy leaves. I'm all good, and then I put a leaf down. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm with you guys.
So then, you know what? This whole river of leaves thing, I think you guys should just practice it, because they can be quite enjoyable once you see the color kind of just flowing and doing its thing. I don't know, at least for me it is. And this is why loose style of painting, guys, because you can't perfect the leaf, then you know what? That's a leaf. You put a stroke down, it's green, that's a leaf. It's good enough. Let's just go with that.
Love it. I got lots of green strokes.
Yeah, see? There you go. Someone looking at your artwork, trying to critique it, going, oh, I can't quite tell what it is. Well, honey, the green stuff are the leaves. All the other colors are the flowers.
I love that. I just snorted my coffee a little.
Okay, so we're actually at 1 o'clock. How are we doing?
I wouldn't say that I'm done.
I haven't started my leaves yet.
That's okay. You can just keep going.
I'm a slowpoke.
I wouldn't say I'm done either, but the point was to make sure that you guys get into the flow, and then, you know, you can finish. I mean, obviously you guys need to be doing at least 4 more versions of this over the next month, so you've got a lot of time to practice. And try things, I guess. You've got the techniques, you've got the colors, you've got the video. Well, you will get the video. And then you just give it another go, and you'll find it a lot easier. At least a lot of people who keep saying when they watch the regular YouTube videos of mine that they'll watch it once and then they'll go and paint it, so then they have an idea. And it's a lot better that way. So, you know, you might just be a lot quicker in the second time around, because this was a lot of not really feeling in the dark. But if you've never tried something like this before, then maybe a little bit of feeling in the dark. Karen, you look really tired. Did you get your coffee?
I got some coffee. I did. I realized I really am not a live painting student. I'm much better when I have the video ahead of time, and
right.
I can rewind it and go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
Painting along with you is impossible for me, so I've just been watching for the most part. Yeah, I think I'm more of a different kind of a student.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of people have said that, so, which is why everyone isn't here. So a lot of them just get the class afterwards, and they prefer doing it on their own. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
You're not alone in that boat.
I'm certainly glad you mentioned that, because I was feeling
no need. No, we all learn differently, right? So it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It is totally.
I also wanted to ask you, in your live videos, it seems like the focus is a little more blurry than it is on your YouTube videos. Is that typical?
I think I've heard that in the last 2 classes, and I think that is because of Zoom, because this is over Zoom. In the YouTube videos, I am using my camera, and my camera is way better than the Zoom quality. So that's probably why. But today I'm actually using the camera again to record this as well, so that the video that you have is a little better quality. Because I just figured out. I didn't even know my camera could do that. So yay for me. I accidentally stumbled on that and lost the last Sunday live that I did on YouTube. So yeah. So hopefully it's better.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay, so I'm going to call it quits here, guys. And it's okay if you're still going. If you want to keep on going, that's totally fine. But this is what I've ended up with, and it doesn't have to, yours doesn't have to be this intense. It's okay if you've got just a couple of florals. But yeah, anyone want to show what they've done or any more comments on what they've learned or questions? No? We're good?
No, here's mine. Hang on a minute. I gotta figure out how to turn it around. Nope, not gonna do that. No, that's not right either.
No?
Okay, how about?
Oh, there you go. Nice. You've got a nice array of different colors, yeah.
Here's
and the
mine.
leaves, yeah, leaves
just
look
have
great.
flowers.
Hold on,
pretty.
I'm gonna remove me as a pin and add. Here we go. Nice. Okay, see, that's really nice too. Why did I open chat? That's really great as well, Laura. Who else? Anyone else? Oh, Jill.
Here's.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Nice, Jill.
Thank you.
Love it.
Ooh.
Love it. Okay.
That's beautiful.
Let me see.
Here's mine.
Jetties.
Just said that.
Adding everyone. I'm adding everyone as a pin.
They're all beautiful.
Claire's.
Oh, there we go. Oh, beautiful, guys. Okay, see how everyone's looks so different, but like this is your style. This is great.
Yeah, I don't know if I want mine to be my style. I get bored and all of a sudden things get huge and.
No, but that's good. Like I always say, there's certain elements that you need to keep in mind when you're doing your composition. Besides different tonal ranges, it's also sizing. So big and small, thick and thins, lights and darks. These all help make your composition more interesting and not flat. So, this is great. It's really good. So don't keep up with the differentiating and sizing. All right.
Clarice, I have some brushes that I bought from Shimoni Art.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And they are fabulous for leaves.
But
I've been dying to try those.
The Fibonacci, correct?
Fibonacci.
Is that how I say it? I'm sorry, I sorted it. Yes. And I have one that's a long one, like a dagger.
Yeah.
Kind of. And another one, I have the numbers on them. And another one that's kind of triangular.
Okay.
And
I want that triangular one.
Yes, they're both great for leaves. So they're expensive, but they're worth it.
I use a lot of her brushes too. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Clarice, I've told you about those.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I remember. And she normally has a sale once a year or something like that, right? Like.
There's somebody in the States that has them making brushes for her as well, and they're a lot less expensive because there's no shipping. I mean, there's regular shipping to the States involved because shipping from wherever she is, Switzerland, is expensive.
Switzerland. I believe she's Switzerland. Yep.
I mean, that adds a whole nother brush to the cost. So if anybody's interested, I have her info as well.
Yeah, send it. Jill, why don't you send it to me and I can add it in the email that I send out with the video.
Yeah, I just got 2 brushes from her. Her name is Nikki. This is one of them. It's a little tulip brush.
Oh, nice. Yes, cat's tongue is the other word for it, right?
Yeah, and it can also be used flat. And I tried them for the first time, and I loved them. But I have a lot of the other brushes as well, the Shimoni, because I think they're the best brushes I've ever used. I agree. Mm-hmm. They're pretty amazing.
I had it in my checkout, and then I decided not to when I saw the shipping. So that was my story.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. That's why I usually wait until there's a sale. But
no, this was during the sale. There was no sale on the shipping though, so that's why they went back.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point.
But
I just started using these the Zen Art, and I like them.
They're decent brushes for beginners and people who are just getting into watercolor who don't want to make a crazy investment. So that's why I picked them as you know, for the classes. But if you've got better already, then yeah, I would say use those. But yeah, they come in a good variety. So, all right, guys, let's do our picture with our work, and then you guys can continue painting. And I should probably tag me. Wait, not tag me. Add me as a pin. Libby, you want to get on here, hun, or no, you're good?
Hi, Libby. There you are. I can't hear you.
There you are. Okay, ready?
Yes.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Everybody smile. Awesome. Great. Got it. Okay, well, thanks so much, guys, for joining. And let me know if, like, send me an email or whatever if you have any questions as you're continuing in your painting. You should get the video today on Tuesday. So if you do not get an email from me on Tuesday for whatever reason, because again, I've heard that sometimes there's a random person or two that don't get emails for whatever reason. I don't know. I still haven't figured that out. Just send me an email or send me a DM on Instagram and I can just forward it to you. It'll just save all the hassle of trying to figure out what's going on. And yeah, that's it. All right, guys. Well, you have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.